So, I want to start by thanking grbr2006, not just for giving me an interview, but reaching out and offering the interview in the first place. I really appreciate it, and on that note, a really big thank you to everyone out there watching this and otherwise supporting my channel. This wouldn't have happened without your support, and I hope you'll give some more support to grbr2006 over on his channel. There's plenty more to see and hear from him over there, and make sure to keep up on his Twitter as well. So here we go, with some gameplay from the mod and screenshots of the chat. Let's get on with the interview. And, sorry if the presentation's a little rough. Now to start with, this interview was fairly late for me, so some questions you see and others you won't see are going to show me becoming a little convoluted with how I'm asking things as time goes on. So the first question is an obvious one. What got him wanting to make a Friday Night Funkin' mod to begin with? Not specifically Trolls vs. Amori, but just in general. And you can say his response was fairly simple as well. It was just boredom and wanting to make something cool. He also describes that his first Friday Night Funkin' mod was of an original character named Michelle, and it was a reskin of the tutorial. The mod's not around anymore, but he still shared his assets and art on Michelle. And looking back, I probably should have asked additional questions about Michelle and what the old project was, but I was tired and just didn't think of it. But in the end, everybody starts somewhere, and I did have presence of mind to ask if he was already creating his own original music at that time, or if he just used the basic tutorial song. And he did make his own music for it back then. And it looks like he still has the music somewhere, but I'm not going to push him to share it. And so everybody starts somewhere, and how did the path go? What other mods did he work on, or think up of working on before Trolls vs. Amori? Well, he did something called Garden of Nightmares, and a reskin mod for Friday Night Funkin' labeled grbr2006 Remix. And a quick search on my side did find the Remix mod, but a lot of what he's talking about is also available to see and hear on his YouTube channel, so go ahead and check it out. So now the path takes us to Trolls vs. Amori, and as I said in the FanWorks video where I discussed the mod, it fits incredibly well together, and the obvious question to ask at that point is, how do you come up with that idea? Well, it turns out there was a comment on a mod showcase video of the original Trolls files, and they said that the art style reminded them of Amori. He agreed, and also said that the one cutscene image with Legion reminded him of something from the game. So yeah, if you ever question yourself why you should leave comments on videos, you might be the next inspiration for somebody's artwork. And for those of you wondering, something is the official name for a thing in Amori. And the similarity I noticed between them was that they both seem to have a sort of notebook, pencil drawing, or colored pencil style of doing things. Now, myself, I've gotten about 2/3 of the way through Amori, and already looked up a few things about it, so I'm pretty well versed on the story and the lore of it. And I do honestly feel that grbr2006 does a great job of having his art be a merging of the two of them, as well as giving the extra effort to give different but still recognizable new outfits to the characters from the games. Now, I asked if he purposefully gave focus to his art to do that, but it was just pretty much a happy little accident that his art looked like that to begin with, and that's normally how he draws and makes things look. And his inspirations come from in his words, a mishmash of multiple different styles from games and cartoons that he enjoys. And he cites Steven Universe, various 2000s art, and of course elements from Friday Night Funkin' and Amori. Now, judging from his YouTube channel, I said that it looked like he'd been doing music and remixes for a while. You know, asked about influences and when that started. And he actually has been making content for YouTube since 2014 on different channels that he didn't want to share. But he actually started getting into music in 2019. And like most people out there, he uses Fruity Loops, or FL Studio. It's been a while, I'm not sure what the proper title of the thing is nowadays. And while some musicians out there would hook up, synthesizer keyboards or something, he does all his work purely on computer, although he has tried experimenting with a keyboard and didn't like the outcome. But like I said, all this stuff started with a comment, so I asked if he knew about the Trolls Files and or Amori before he came across the comment that inspired the mod. Or was it the comment that led him to looking into what the two things were? Fairly obviously, he already knew what the Trolls Files was, back when it was still called the Blue Balls Incident, which I still think rolls off the tongue better. But he was fairly new to Amori when he saw the comment, and that actually got him looking deeper into it. And like I said in the video, there was a strong amount of respect toward the two inspirations that he had. And I want to know how deep he got into them, whether he played them directly, watched playthroughs, and what kind of opinions he had on them. And to be honest, it's unsurprising to hear that he actually never played them himself. Now, he says he can't play Trolls Files because his computer sucks, which, and I mean, this is a common thing with a lot of us. We don't have a game, so we just watch people play it on YouTube or Twitch or something like that. And a lot of times, when we watch it that way, and we see for ourselves that, you know, the hype is real, the game doesn't actually suck, yeah, that might make us actually go out and give the $20, $30 for the independent game, or $60 for the stuff on the shelf. And he did the same thing with Undertale, and I'll come clean here myself. I haven't played Undertale myself either, but to mitigate that, I did buy it and the soundtrack just to make sure that, you know, I gave support to it. I constantly keep telling people to support what they like out there in whatever ways they can, and I'm practicing what I preach. But regardless, the crossover that he created has spread the word for both of the games. And to follow up on that, how much of a fan and how much of appreciation did he have for the games when he was making the crossover? Or in what other way would he describe his mindset toward creating and working on it? And he gives a fairly reasonable response, which is, he honestly has no idea if he accurately portrayed the source materials right. There's a reason why he labels it as a crack fic rather than a fanfic, so it doesn't really have to make sense. And his mindset for most of it was, he thought doing something would be cool for the story. And like I clarify, it's not me asking something to imply only the fans that know everything can do it right. It was just, you know, asking to see what a creator's mindset is like for others out there that might want to try their hand at something. There's no reason you shouldn't have freedom to approach something the way you want to. Even if there might be fans out there that would hold up the "you're wrong" signs or whatever. But now's the time that we begin talking about the mod specifically. So first off is the team. Obviously there's people that have come and gone to help out working on it. The credits for the mod had a number of people in it, but I do get the impression that grbr2006 did pretty much the lion's share of work on things. But regardless of that, I still wanted to ask how working with the team has been, and how would he describe the experiences for others out there. And it's a simple response, but nothing wrong with it. He says it's been pretty nice, and awkward, but nice nonetheless. And I asked if he had moments where people who had more knowledge of what he was working on came up with suggestions, ideas, or they collaborated on things. Everything's been mostly planned in advance already. But there was something when Basil recorded some lines that he thought were pretty cool, so he plans on using them in a later chapter. And so to wrap up questions about the team, how many people did he already know? Did he have to reach out to many people, or were there some friends of a friend kind of thing going on? So the only person on the team that he knew prior for the mod was Disc Jam, who made music for Chapter 3's cutscenes and is the voice of Hero's future chromatic scale. For those of you wondering what that is, chromatic scale is effectively the term for the lyrics the characters are singing in the Friday Night Funkin' songs. But the one who really brought the team together was the voice of Basil, Logan. And he's actually one of the moderators for Funkopedia, which I've referenced plenty of times before, and has done prior voice work as well. And it also helped them when Malicious Bunny retweeted an announcement that they were looking for voice actors for the mod. So in those regards and others, how would he say that the communities for the Trolls Files, Amori, or Friday Night Funkin' in general, have been helpful and supportive of him, the rest of the team, and or the mod. And according to him, only the Trolls community has really been supportive. The Friday Night Funkin' fandom thought the idea was fairly stupid, which he thinks is a fair assessment, and the Amori fandom doesn't know he exists. Which, in their defense, they're probably not crossing over into Friday Night Funkin' that much. Now, to step in on this, yes, I've seen and noticed myself in doing research for my myriad of FNF videos that the Trolls community as a whole seems to be more tight-knit among them. I won't get into the FNF community as a whole, but I'm sure there's difficulty in keeping up on everything new that comes around, and even more difficulty in taking projects seriously. In general, there's a lot of ideas and art for Friday Night Funkin' projects that ultimately don't get completed or even worked on further. Now, I'm the first person to know how real life can screw things around a bit, and the last one to complain about missing deadlines even when trying to keep up work on things. So why am I focusing on this? Because it's part of why I keep going on in my videos about supporting artists and sharing their work. It not only helps them out, but also helps how the community as a whole is seen from the outside. Interruption over, back to the interview. So the next question I have was one that was always sticking in my mind when I was playing the game, which was a boyfriend steps aside from the story for a little while, and plenty of other people come in to sing the songs instead. And my curiosity was how much of that was intended, and how much of the music was planned out ahead of time, and if using other characters besides Boyfriend helped in how he made the music. So generally it was planned from the start, and he based a lot of this on criticism and comments people have made about other Friday Night Funkin' mods. Stuff like too many with Boyfriend, or Boyfriend's voice is the bad part, or there need to be other playable characters. So he cut Boyfriend off the stage and let the other characters come in for a little while. And when he does come back in Chapter 4, he doesn't have the same singing voice. And in terms of the question of freedom of making the music based off of other voices, regardless of if he was using Boyfriend's voice or not, he was able to do just about anything he wanted. He would just have to make the chromatics sound right, but he would have made it work. But he also says that the only track that had a melody planned before arranging it in Act 1 was Suru Doi Naifu. God, I hope I got that right. So one of the other things I enjoyed out of the mod was when Aubrey's singing was controlled by the player, and I asked about the inspiration for that and where that came from. And it turns out that was unintentional, apparently a glitch, but it looked cool, so he left it in there, which might make that one of the best unintentional additions I've ever seen for one of these mods, considering how it played into the story of the song. But he also took inspiration from a series called SMG4, as well as taking inspiration from SCP-035, which, if you don't know about the SCP Foundation, it's kind of like a creepypasta mixed with the X-Files Wikipedia site. Now going back to Suru Doi Naifu, in my video I think I made my approval of Nene being in it fairly clear, and I wanted to ask about what made him want to bring her in. In short, I wanted to know if he knew Nene because she was slated to be included into future official Friday Night Funkin' songs because of her relation as a character with Pico, or if he had already known about her ahead of time. And thankfully, to me at least, being a fan of the old school Pico stuff, he did know about her from Newgrounds ahead of time since 2014. It's just me here being a little happy that somebody I felt was underrepresented even in their original form got a chance to step into the spotlight more. Speaking of Pico though, that brought me to one of the highlights of the mod. The song Ophthalmophobia. I'm gonna have to go learn Latin for more of these Trolls Files mods. Anyway, it was probably the most impressive song I played in the mod. And I didn't notice it until I was editing the video, but if you listen closely, you will spot that the Troll's voice in Hero starts fading away to be replaced by Hero's more human voice. But being the longest song in the game, all those different singers and the different effects to the singers, I felt compelled to ask if it was one of the longest stages of songs he put work into, or if it was kind of the same compared to the others. And it was kind of the same compared to the others. The chart and the song itself took longer just by their time, but the effort was proportionally the same. And of course I had to ask how much work and focus goes into these songs. How much is planned in advance? How many things are given little touches and changes during the creation process? And there's a bit of both there. There's a rough story and outline always in place, and minor changes are made as they go through them. But generally speaking, nothing about the core story has changed. As I say here, I can assume it was a very deliberate use of the song My Time from Amori to be used during Basophobia. And it was supposed to signify the end of something, which he elaborates on a little bit, and I already knew when I made my video, where originally the ending of Trolls vs. Amori would have been at that point with an apocalypse, and Basil and Boyfriend were the only survivors, with the real Legion being around to constantly torment them. But he felt that it sounded lame and it didn't fit the story that he constructed by then. As he puts it, he felt it was a better idea to have Basil going insane from seeing a vision of future events through dreams, more than just, okay, rocks fall, everybody dies. Now I'll bring this up here, and I'll probably repeat it later. grbr2006 does want to share some things about Act 2 as well, so I'll be giving him the opportunity to do that as well. And on that note, we move on from the story of Act 1 and talk about the free play songs a little bit. Now, I mentioned the joke songs in the video, but didn't cover many of them. And I tell him I assume they were just put in for a bit of fun, but even so, were they given just as much attention and focus as the main songs? This is where I start confusing him a little bit with my questions, so, Anyway, I give an example of something like I Swallowed Shampoo, which I didn't show in the video, and he explains for that song, at least, that was put in as a request from his brother. So yeah, just some fun things he threw in. Now, a song I did cover in my video and wanted to ask about was Henophobia. I loved the design of the trolls, and honestly, even without knowing what series the Bottle and Backpack came from, it was an impressive song nonetheless. And as it turns out, he's a fan of HFJ1, which I linked in the previous video, but I'll also link in this one also. And has a story to share for. He says he lost data on the song twice when his computer switched off on him, and he was originally going to just drop the song altogether, but decided to stick through with it. And also, he helped clear up the fact that the bottle is named Bryce and the backpack is named Liam, which I did do research and saw when I was making the video, but neglected to put it in. He also gave further insight into the fact that during episode 14 of the series, Liam and Bryce go through a bunch of universes, and he had the thought that during the montage of them going through everything, what if one of them they went to had a Trolls in it? So Henophobia can actually fit very neatly into the canon of one, which I'm still unsure of what the canon is. I haven't been able to watch all of it yet. But again, there's a lesson to learn in this, where even if other people might not know about what you're making, just the act of making it can bring more attention to stuff that you like. And I get into that a little bit with him, where I ask that Henophobia was like Happy and Atypical, where it was a song made for something he liked, or were made to bring attention to something that he liked. So he expands a few things about that, with the song Atypical coming from a mod focused solely on Amori, with the voice of Monica and presumably the characters coming from another mod called Doki Doki Takeover. Happy, as I said in the video, came from Sunday Night Suicide, which was based off a Suicide Mouse creepypasta. In Sunday Night Suicide, the Mickey that is singing the song Happy is nicknamed Sunny, to make him different from the other Suicide Mice mods. It's a creepypasta. Plenty of other people have tried their hand at it. But because they share the name, that's why he wanted to make sure Sonny from Amori was singing it. And so to cover the rest of the free play songs, I asked if Lygophobia, Pedophobia, and the Lord X song, if they were songs made either for something else or if they were always intended to be a part of free play. And like many a creator out there, he was just having fun doing new stuff beforehand and then added them in. And if you check out his YouTube like I did, you'll notice he has a Yumaniki song up as well. And considering what it was, I had to ask if that was planned for a future update free play song, which he confirmed. And there's a lot about the future update with Act 2 that he does want to share. And as I tell him, the spoilers for Act 2 aren't really going to ruin much about what happens in the future with the game. This is his interview, so he can say whatever he likes. That said, considering it was about 3 in the morning for me, I felt it was a good time to pause everything and catch up with that later. grbr2006 does want to share things about Act 2, and I'm grateful he wants me to be able to share it to you guys, so how can I say no? That said, our time differences were evident from the beginning, and, well, I should have asked something much sooner in the interview, which I finally got around to. Which, as I've said in my addendum video about the popularity of Friday Night Funkin', the free sharing of art and music on the internet brings people and cultures around the world together in ways that is much easier than it ever was before. So, how far around the world has grbr2006 been connecting with us? Turns out he's in the Philippines, which for me is literally on the opposite side of the planet. But as this is the end of the interview, there were 2 more questions I wanted to give that I felt were appropriate sign-offs for him to be able to give. How does he feel, and what thoughts does he have about the reaction he's been seeing people give the Trolls Files vs. Amori? To which he gives the message to all out there, seeing people talk about his work in a positive light and telling him how underrated his work is makes him happy. And honestly, yeah, it's underrated, doesn't get the views it should. And to say my piece, grbr2006 definitely has the talent to be able to stand with any of the big dogs out there in terms of radio play or being on TV kind of stuff. And finally, does he have anything he'd like to say directly to all the fans of his work out there? And he wants all of you to know that he thanks you for your support. And from me, I'll say, let's keep giving it to him. Once again, a big thank you to grbr2006 for the interview, and I hope you all enjoyed it. If you have questions of your own, want to give him a thank you yourself, or just keep up with things going on, check out his Twitter and support his channel. Downloading his game is good, but there's always other simple things we can do to help creators we like.